You have to meet at least 5 minutes. For our table topics, we have at least a minute. So at a minute, I'll show green. At a minute and 30, I'll show yellow. In 2 minutes, I'll show red. If you speak past 2:30, you'll be disqualified. Now for our evaluation portion, it's 3 minutes. The minimum time is 2 minutes. At 3 minutes, I'll show green. At 2 minutes, I'll show green. 2:30, I'll show yellow. And 3, I'll show red. If you speak past 3:30, you are disqualified. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Our next duty holder is on Zoom, which is going to be Madeleine, which is going to be our grammarian. So, Madeleine, can you please explain your role as grammarian?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests. As grammarian, it's my responsibility to pay close attention to all speakers, listening carefully to their use of language and grammar. I'll take note of any misuses of the English language, as well as any luminous and exceptional uses. I may also note any interesting words. As grammarian, it's also my duty to introduce the word of the day. So for today's meeting, the word is ameliorate, which means to make something bad or unsatisfactory better. Here, I'll share my screen real quick. I had a manager use this at work this week. I thought it sounded really great. Wanted to share. Oh, I actually can't share my screen, but so it is ameliorate. That is the word. It is to make something bad much better. An example would be he wanted to ameliorate his suffering. So each speaker is encouraged to use the word of the day. In order to qualify for best table topic speech, you must use the word of the day in your response to the question or topic. I will give a word of the day report at the end of table topics when called upon. I will also provide a word of the day and grammarian's report when called upon by the general evaluator toward the end of the meeting. Thank you, and back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Madeleine. And our next duty holder, who is performing 2 duties tonight, is going to be John Vessels as vote counter. All right, we're going to go ahead and go to the odd counter, then we'll have John explain his role as odd counter.
Good evening, everybody. I'm John. I'm going to be the odd counter tonight. The job of the odd counter is to listen for crutch words like ahs, so's, you knows, things like that. I will click when I hear you speaking them, saying that word, so that you know that you've done some kind of verbal crutch. I will not do it during prepared speeches. At those times, I will just take notes, and at the end of the meeting, when called upon by the general evaluator, I will present my report. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, thank you, John. Our next duty holder is going to be our posture monitor, Mark Schroeder. Please explain your role as posture monitor.
Thank you so much, Dagan. As posture monitor, I'm going to be looking for anything that detracts, thank you, that detracts from your speech or your message because of your posture. If you happen to be doing windshield washers or putting your hands in your pockets or your reverse fig leaf or fig leaf, anything that detracts from your message, if it's not part of your message, I will end up dinging the bell or making a note of it if it happens to be during the prepared speeches when I'm supposed to be quiet so that I don't disturb you. I will prepare a report at the end of the meeting of the things that I notice with regard to posture that I thought was distracting or not conducive to your message. Mr. Toastmaster.
Our last duty holder tonight is going to be Adelita with vote counter. Please explain your role as vote counter.
Thank you, Toastmaster. Hi, I'm Adelita. As vote counter, I will collect and count the ballots when the audience votes for best speaker, best table topic speaker, best evaluator, and the best big three. The big three are the Toastmaster, the table topics master, and the general evaluator. I will report Each person wins in each category. I will not cast a ballot myself except in the case of a tie, in which case I will cast a vote to break the tie. I will not announce a tie vote. Place your vote in one of these containers, the cups that says Toastmasters, and that's placed on each table. At the end of the meeting, I will announce the winner and ribbons of the votes. The ballots also have space to write comments to each speaker, evaluator, and table topics participant. Please place comments in the containers and I will deliver them to the appropriate speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to get into our topic of the meeting, which is safety or safety tips. First of all, I'm going to have 3 different sections throughout the meeting. Talk about auto safety, home safety, and just personal safety. So I'm going to get into some auto safety tips real quick. So this is not really I guess it could be a safety tip. Keep your tires properly inflated, because if they're not, they could really have a blowout, especially at highway speeds. Also, it'll save you gas mileage too if you keep your tires properly inflated. Also, kind of do your own, every once in a while, you do your own little mini state inspection. Check for lights being out, the blinkers, your horn working, things that they inspect, your state inspector. Because if your lights are out, especially at night, you're not going to be able to see as good, which cause visibility issues. And if for brake lights go out, you don't know it. Somebody may not know you're stopping. So, try to do that periodically. Just, of course, you can't check your brake lights. You have to have somebody else that may help you with that kind of stuff. But, just kind of check periodically, check those kind of things. Also, check your fluids. Make sure you have your oil fluids, your transmission fluids. Make sure those are up to date and full and good to go. Because if you get low on oil, your car is going to start running too hot. You're going to start damaging your engine. So you can make sure those things are really good too. And of course, don't drive drowsy. If you're on a long trip, you start getting drowsy, pull up to a rest stop. Get out, walk a little bit, things like that. You don't, because if you get drowsy, I've been this before. I was, a long time ago when I was in the military. That's been 20 years ago. Well, more than 20 years ago now. That one time I was up for literally 48 hours straight. And I was so drowsy driving back to my barracks that it's almost like I was driving drunk. That's the same feeling I got. So you don't want to do that. So those keys. And also, if you in case of possibility of a breakdown, you should always have some kind of flares or some kind of reflective device like a triangle you can set up, to put out to warn oncoming people that you're broken down. And of course, these are hazards. Of course, then again, if something happens to your electrical system of your car, you can't have it on. So flares or reflective devices will be helpful in those situations. And of course, it's kind of a safety, but think about having a dash cam, because that could actually save you in certain situations. If something happened, you can prove that you were in the right. That's been helpful for me in the past accident I had. I actually have video because I have a dash cam and prove that I was in the right and they were in the wrong. So, all right, there's some good general auto safety tips, for your car. So we're going to get into our first speaker tonight. Hopefully they're ready. It's going to be Lee King, and evaluating Lee King tonight is going to be Tom. So, Tom, can you explain how you're going to evaluate Lee tonight?
Thank you, Dagan. So Lee's project is an interview. So Madeleine has agreed to act as interviewer for Lee. So thank you very much, Madeleine. And Lee will be the interviewee. Lee sent me the evaluation for this project prior to tonight's meeting. And the primary evaluation criteria I'll be looking for is poise, concise answers to the questions, and the ability to recover from ineffective answers, which I'm having a hard time imagining coming from Lee. Anyway, with no further ado, I'll turn it over to Madeleine and Lee. Madeleine and Lee, interview.
Just a quick Zoom check as your facilitator. Do we still have good sound?
Yes.
You do.
Okay, because we have no way to monitor it here, unfortunately. Just checking. Thank you.
All right, let's welcome Lee and Madeleine with the interview. Interview Lee and Madeleine.
All right, Mr. King, we received your resume and we were impressed by your qualifications and background. But I'd like to ask you a little more questions just to get to know you a bit more. So for this position, tell me, what is your greatest strength?
My greatest strength is being able to resolve conflict, work with both team members, customers, family members, patients, and help everybody come to a consensus where they feel like they win. Whenever there is conflict, I think win-win is the best option. And I also have good experience with being calm and methodical in my thought processes during stressful times.
It's good to hear. It's definitely a great trait. Can you tell me about a time when you had to resolve conflict?
Yes, there were several times that I've had to resolve conflict, but one particular case was when a family was really unhappy with the services that they were being provided, and there seemed to be no way to ameliorate their concerns of their patient always being in pain. So one thing that I did was to go back and work with nursing, make sure that we had pain medication scheduled appropriately, as well as getting a consult for a pain management doctor who could better manage the pain. And ultimately, it's turned out to be a really good, positive experience for both the family, the patient, and the team, for everybody involved, because the pain specialist was able to manage the pain. And actually, one of our lower performing patients, it ended up being one of our higher performing outcomes for that month.
Wow, that's great to hear. That's so important to help manage pain. Thank you for that. So in general, we're going to take a step back. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
I've been an occupational therapist for about 9 years now. I've worked in a number of settings, being hospital, nursing home, an long-term acute rehab where patients were on ventilators and in the hospital for IV antibiotics for a duration of months. Of course, most recently, some of my experience has actually also been quite a bit in dealing with post-COVID, some with long hauler effects and others without.
Okay, good to hear. What drew you to being an occupational therapist?
I got interested in therapy back when I was in high school. I volunteered on a rehab unit. And of course, at the time when I was 16, I thought that was just a stepping stone into medical school. And through that experience, I realized that if I didn't make it into medical school, then I wanted to be a therapist. So that drew me to becoming a therapist.
Huh. Interesting. So why do you think we should hire you?
Well, I've done a lot of research on your company, and I noticed that you have a very diverse both workforce and population group, which I always find is a challenge to be able to tap into new populations and to develop myself both professionally and personally, but at the same time take some of my knowledge from previous places and bring it to your organization. For example, I've worked for organizations that have stroke and total joint replacement certifications through the Joint Commission, which I've noticed on your website are two areas in which you are hoping to grow in the next 5 years.
Yes, definitely. Good call out. So let's see. If I were to ask some of your coworkers about you, what would they say about you?
Probably the one thing that most coworkers would mention is I'm the one that comes early and leaves early. I feel like that is definitely a big part of occupational therapy. I am the one that will show up at 6:30 and leave by 2 or 2:30. However, during that time between 6:30 and 8 before breakfast trays come, there's a number of things I do. I work on dressing and bathing with some patients. Also, for other patients, that includes positioning and feeding. So that is actually probably the most critical time I feel like in a 24-hour day to capture those activities of daily living, which sets us apart from therapy.
Okay, excellent. And that will fit in well here. So let's see, why do you want to leave your current position?
The only reason why I am seeking this opportunity is I just feel like being in the university setting will allow me the opportunity to grow professionally and also give me access to some of the newer research. So I always feel like the best therapists are the ones that seek out research opportunities, do research, as well as contribute. So I feel like working in this setting, I can grow in that way and become a stronger therapist and individual because of that.
Definitely. I can really appreciate your drive for more research and learning. And so finally, do you have any questions for me?
Yes. Tell me a little bit more about your current staffing. How many therapists do you have on board and what are their experience levels?
Yeah, so we currently have 10 therapists. It ranges. So it ranges from beginner to expert. We have a few out with COVID, but right now we are generally short-staffed, even with if those few were in. So we are looking to hire multiple people, and we're definitely interested in proceeding.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, good job, Lee and Madeline. So I now call upon a timer's report. Did Lee qualify on time? Yes, he did. All right. So also we do not have to take a vote for best speaker tonight because we only have one speaker. And unfortunately, it would do no good to leave special notes for Lee because I'm here in the studio, so because he can't see him. But if anybody on Zoom has something they want to say to Lee, you can send him a private message. I might have to figure that part out too. All right, so I'm going to get into my second topic here on some home safety tips. And first is to make sure your smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors are in working order. Of course, nowadays they usually have a smoke and carbon monoxide detector as one, so you don't have really two anymore. But to make sure that they're unless they're hardwired into your powder, make sure those batteries are good to go. Of course, most of the time they will start chirping to let you know when the battery gets low, but it could be a defect and they may not chirp. So always check that out, and always have a fire extinguisher ready, especially maybe in the kitchen area. That's where more probably a fire might occur, grease fire, something like that. It's always good to have a little fire extinguisher. That way, if it starts, you can put it out real quick. Now I know if a fire got too big, a little fire extinguisher doesn't really help, but if you can get to it fast enough, you can probably put it out in time. And always try to be weather ready. For example, if you remember last year, we had all that ice and snow affecting the electrical grids. Our power was out for a while. I remember they had rolling blackouts, and they initially said we'd be out for like 30 minutes to an hour, but that wasn't the case. It's more like we had power for about 30 minutes or an hour, and the rest of the day we were out of power. So it got pretty cold. Wearing our jackets inside the house and everything. So just make sure you're prepared for any kind of situation like that. Just be ready to go. And always put, if you have dark areas in the house, especially, for bigger homes, you might see some areas that aren't well lit. So it's always good to maybe have a little night light plugged in the wall to at least provide a little bit of lighting so you're not stumbling around. And also it's good to have, a flashlight prepared in case the power does go out in the middle of the night and you need to get around the house. Or maybe a little candles, but it's not really good to have candles lit in the house, but and make sure it is a safe and well protected place away from anything that could burn. And also make sure, like, if you have rugs on the floor, like on a hard floor or linoleum floor, something like that, make sure there's something under the rug that doesn't allow it to slide, or even on the stairs, make sure there's some kind of gripping type substance. Maybe a carpet, it works good, but make sure there's nothing slippery, like if we're going upstairs or rugs on the floor. And to be safe when it comes around the kitchen area, especially when it comes to hot water, you know, you might want to make sure that, check that water heater, make sure it's like 120 degrees or below, so you don't burn your hands if you try to put that water up too hot. So it's overall things, there's things to think about home safety. There's a whole bunch of things out there. Be up here all night for talking about safety things like this, but I just want to get a few basics out there, and we're going to move on to our second portion of the meeting, which is going to be our table topic section, and then we're going to back up to Mark Smith for that. That's Mark Smith.
This is the table topics portion of the meeting. And for our guests, what we do is we ask questions to various folks in the room or on Zoom, and it gives you an opportunity to speak off the cuff. If you think about your job, you may be called upon in a meeting, for example, to give an opinion on something, and I've been there, and at times I've been really, really sharp, but at times I've just blown it. So this is a great experience to get to do that. There are a few things to keep in mind in order to win the competition. You have to give a response that lasts a minimum of 1 minute, a maximum of 2 minutes and 30 seconds, including the 30-second grace period. So you'll want to keep an eye on Justin, and when you hit that minimum of 1 minute, he'll flash the green card. Also, in order to win the competition, you need to use the word of the day, ameliorate, which Rob's holding up, which is in front of the podium. It's a little bit hard to say. It's about 6 syllables. I think I've said it really fast, but it's a good word. And related to safety, which is the theme of the meeting, driving slower may well ameliorate the risk involved in driving, for example. And then also, after our guests, after you've had an opportunity to see people give responses, if you'd like, we can call on you. If you don't want to, we want. So if you feel enthusiastic and you want to participate, just get my attention. If you don't, then you're just totally welcome to observe and see how it all works out. And in keeping with the theme of safety, I've heard a phrase or a sign off either in email or on phone calls, especially during the pandemic, be safe. Kind of a fraternal way to commiserate with, I guess, all of us that are going through the current pandemic. And so maybe safety is on people's minds. You hear a lot about, for example, crime in the streets, or you hear about like auto safety or driving safety. And one story from my past is I recall when I was really young, we lived in a much smaller town than Dallas or Arlington, which is where we moved to. It was Sherman, Texas. It was a small little town. I don't think we even locked the doors there. But when we moved to the big city of Arlington, Texas, Dad became almost obsessive compulsive in making sure the doors were locked every night, etc., to make sure his family was safe. And I say that because different people may have different viewpoints or different philosophies on their personal safety. This first question is, and keep in mind, some of us in school were hall monitor types. Some people were the people running down the hall that got turned in. First question is, are you a safety stickler, or do you like to live dangerously? And that question is for Madeleine Hitchcliff. Madeleine.
Thank you. Is that because I have a cast on my hand? So I think I typically fall somewhere in the middle. immediately that comes to mind, there's two levels of safety that I'm thinking of. The first level of safety is why someone might get a cast on their hand. It's perhaps extreme sporting. It's maybe going a little too fast on your skis or your bike or whatnot. The other type of safety I'm thinking of is more of the COVID. Are you washing your hands? Are you using masks and sanitizers? And not even COVID, but just illnesses in general. That type of safety and just hygienic types of way. So to answer your question, the first safety I think of, and that's the safety where you're actually putting yourself at physical risk. I am a relatively safe person. I don't do extreme sports. I don't typically find myself put in a situation where I'm in a cast, not normally. And so I'm a pretty safe person. I'm a safe driver. I like to stay intact. I typically am not a super risk taker as far as the physical safety. And so I really am appreciative of this cast. It's helped ameliorate my poor thumb. Moving on to the second safety question, I think for washing my hands and trying to protect myself from COVID and flu and everything, I think I'm pretty, I think I would fall somewhere in the middle, because I do all the safety precautions suggested by the CDC, but I also have gone out of my house since COVID started, and I do know some people that haven't. And so I think I would fall somewhere in the middle. I've tried to, at least in the second half of the pandemic, I've had a bit of a social life, but also done everything the CDC wanted. I did get vaccinated and everything like that. But, you know, I did go outside, and that's probably why I got COVID. So anyways, that is my answer for the safety question. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. There definitely are legitimate safety concerns we need to be aware of. So tonight's theme is very relevant. Second question is, what is your biggest safety concern? And that is for Adelita.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
What is your biggest safety concern?
Well, what is my biggest safety concern? Wow, I never thought of one. I don't know exactly what it is, but I might have to use the word amillicrate to find the correct, not the correct, but the most safety concerns for me. Because right now, I'm just not, can't think of one. It's not popping up in my head. Back to you, Toastmaster.
And that kind of is your answer, because I'm one of those people that worries about everything in the world. So you apparently are much more healthy in what you worry about than I am. I'm probably on one extreme, sounds like you're on another. Next question is whether you tend to judge people on their, I guess, safetyness habits, or if you're live and let live. And a story that comes to mind is I was visiting at a friend's house some years ago. It was getting on in the evening. My friend had not arrived yet, but I was there with his family. We went in the house from outdoors, and I naturally just locked the door behind me. And when he came home, he jumped all over his wife because the door was locked and he didn't have his key. And so I admitted what I'd done to get her out of trouble. So I'm thinking, dude, that's kind of strange. So I was being a little judgmental. So are you judgmental in safety matters, or are you a live and let live person? And that question is for John Vestas.
Thank you, sir. Am I a judgmental person? or especially about safety. I'm judgmental about a lot of the way people drive. It's like, that's not safe. Get out of your way. No, and I don't ameliorate their driving habits. It's like, you're a mess. Do you know what a blinker is? I mean, I know this Mercedes has a blinker on it. Use it. Let me know that you're going to turn rather than you stop suddenly in here because you have to go into racetrack. Okay? Because I'm driving fast too, and I'm going to run you over if you're not careful. So I'm not too judgmental about safety. Although I have my opinions and I do express them. I have one sister that, I don't know if she has or not, but she hadn't got the vaccination for a long time. I gave my little lecture of what I thought, and I'm not gonna really lecture her too much. She's a little older than me, so hey, she's my elder. But I gave her my talking points, and I left it at that. I've never asked her again if she got vaccinated. She doesn't live with me, but I go to visit every once in a while. I don't ask anymore. I gave you my 2 cents. Use it, don't use it. You know, I can't run your life. I can't live your life. So I have my fingers crossed she did. But I'm not going to push it because I just think it's a safer outcome than to not get a vaccination. Back to you, Mr.
Again, safety is great, but we can definitely overdo it. And there probably are some really dumb safety measures. Like, this is before my time, but looking back at pictures of children growing up in the 50s, one of their safety measures was to hide under a desk because that would protect them in the event of nuclear war. Well, I don't think so. I mean, if the bombs come down on top of your school, sorry, you've had it. So I don't think hiding under the desk would help you that much. So I would like to ask Mark Schroeder, what is the dumbest safety measure he can think of?
What is the dumbest safety measure I can think of? Well, so certainly the one that you picked, I'll go ahead and mention the one having to do with all of the stuff nuclear back in the 50s. Biggest problem with that is they told you to get under your desks. They told you to get under kindling, which is going to be the thing that is going to catch fire in a nuclear explosion anyway. So that was really, really stupid. That was probably one of the worst places that you could possibly be. Recently, I think there was one that was just about as bad. Back when they thought that we were going to have an anthrax problem, there was a lot of either anthrax or sarin or some of the nasty chemicals going around that were being distributed. There was a question about what do you want to do to ameliorate the threat of that? Well, so one of the things that they said was buy a whole bunch of plastic, and I guess you have to turn your house into a Dexter kill room because you've got to put plastic every place and across all the doors and all the windows and everything in order to try to keep this stuff out of your house because it could seep in through all of the windows where you have a little bit of ventilation coming in. That's not really going to work. That's not going to work for, that's not, well, I can't say that. That's not going to work very well at all. It's something that they were recommending. It was actually put on places, on the CDC sites and other places as a way to ameliorate the problem. But it wouldn't work. There was just no way, but they had no other way to make people, the problem is they had no other way to make people feel good about the problem. And to some extent, that's kind of the way we were when COVID started as well, because we had everybody wear cloth masks, everybody wear whatever you've got, basically. Put anything over your face because we don't have N95s for everybody, and we still really don't if you get right down to it. It's still hard to find them. They're not possible. They're still not ubiquitous, which is another good word, ubiquitous. It's one less than ameliorate. If we're counting, and I guess we are. But I think I would put the nuclear one certainly on the list, and the equivalent, which was the anthrax, sarin gas, and all of the other things that were going to come into your house when those were the scares.
And I've also been involved in fire drills at work. where we're told in advance what time the fire drill is going to be, and everyone walks down the stairs laughing and having a good time. Final table topics question, and this has to deal with computer safety, which is very important for all of us. Would you click on a strange link? And for that, I would like to ask Rob Giles to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Topic Master, fellow guests, members. Clicking on things is dangerous, especially when it comes to computers, online activity. It's a very big safety hazard, and it's not just about taking your money, it's possibly about taking your identity. I've had people who have clicked on things that popped up saying that they needed to update something, but they were having problems, followed by a phone call with somebody that was going to ameliorate the problem. However, they were the ones that sent that little pop-up. And the person proceeded to give their network ID and almost gave their password to their network. Now, thankfully, they didn't. And that ameliorated that problem as well. But clicking on things, it's easy to do. And we can be fooled very, very easily into doing it. I get emails all the time from Amazon, from Chase, from Bank of America. And all these things say, there's a problem going on. Why don't you click on this link? We'll help you out. I've learned not to do that, but I wonder, and I think about all those people out there that don't know any better, especially some of the older crowd, my parents, who may get that, and the first thing is, oh my goodness, click. Next thing you know it, bank account is drained, somebody else is using their ID somewhere else, probably overseas, and that is what you have to avoid. So by all means, think about things before you click. Back to you, Mr. Topic.
And very relevant, a painful recollection is I clicked on a link once, supposedly from the post office, telling me if I clicked, I would be able to print out a shipping label for my package, but I had no package to send, and I still fell for it. So it's a very good warning. Those are all the table topics questions, and I'd like to ask Justin to give a timer's report.
Yes. Valid qualified, non-valid qualified, non-valid qualified,
So that was Madeleine, John, Mark, and Rob.
Correct.
Okay, great. And I would like to ask Madeleine, did everyone use the word of the day?
Yes, everyone used the word of the day, and shout out to superstars Mark Schroeder and Rob Giles who used it multiple times. So thank you.
Thank you. In that case, for everyone in the room and everyone on Zoom, please vote for the best of the following candidates. And that's Madeleine, who discussed whether she was a safety stickler or lived dangerously. John Vessels, who discussed if he was judgmental in safety matters or not. Mark Schroeder discussed the dumbest safety measure he was aware of. And Rob Giles answered the question, would he click on a strange link? So please go ahead and vote. And as you're doing that, we'll turn it back over to our Toastmaster, Dagan Newland.
And a quick Zoom check, since we have something in the chat and we don't have the ability to get to it, unfortunately. Are we good?
Yeah, I joined on my iPad. Amelia has my iPad,
Okay,
so
good, okay.
y'all send your votes to mine. Huh? What'd I say? Oh, sorry. Adelita, so Adelita has my iPad, so send your votes to my profile in Zoom. All right, so we're going to talk while y'all are filling out your votes. And remember, you can always fill out comments for anybody here in person as well. If you have any comments for anybody here in person, you can put those in the hub as well. All right, and okay, I'm going to go and get some personal safety tips real quick. Notice for you, just again, when you talk about safety, somebody can be up here all night and talk about safety. But we're going to just talk about a few brief things here. So always be alert and aware of people around you when you're out and about. Don't walk around with your head down. Keep your head up. Keep your eye on the surroundings, because the thieves and criminals out there are going to prey on people that aren't obviously paying attention to their surroundings. So you need to keep their head down when they're walking. So that's what they kind of look for. Like I said, be confident. Walk at a steady pace. Even make eye contact with the people you're passing. All right, and also be aware of your location. Beware of location or situation that could eventually perceive you as being, vulnerable, like dark parking lots or something like that, where the lights may have gone out, or like alleyways. So just make sure you're aware. That's big. All of this is really just make sure you're aware of your surroundings and yourself and your appearance and how you look. Of course, always educate yourself on preventive tactics in case something does happen. Even while you're walking the car, you can always have your keys in your hand. If you have your keys, like this, carrying like this, that's a device where if somebody tries to attack you, you're gonna poke them real quick. Or if you even just have your keys in your hand, be prepared to unlock your car real quick. Of course, don't do anything that's going to block your vision or hearing, such as having two earbuds, maybe one earbud's fine because you can still hear the other ear good, or something that's going to block your vision from seeing things. And of course, for women, if you're carrying a purse, keep it clutched between your arm and your side. That way, it's not very easily for somebody to snatch and grab. That actually happened to my mom a long time ago. She was coming out of the grocery store, and some guy just walked right by and she's just carrying like a normal person would, and just grabbed it and just ran with it. So just a little few things here about the home safety, car safety, and personal safety. I thought y'all enjoy and just keep in mind. And we're going to move on to our general evaluation section of the meeting with Rob Dow.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster. This is the evaluation portion of the meeting where we get some feedback regarding some of the things that we did tonight. We're going to start off with our evaluation of the prepared speech, followed by the reports from our duty holders, and then finally, my general evaluation of the entirety of the meeting. Normally we would have multiple evaluators. However, tonight we only have one evaluator, so there won't be a vote. However, if you do have any comments, like Dagan said, it'd be tough because the evaluator is actually going to be online. But normally we would fill out and put comments in the cups for those people as well as any votes that we were going to do. So let's go ahead and get started with the first part of our general evaluation, or our evaluation portion, and that is for our evaluator. Our evaluator tonight is a first-time evaluator for us, and we look forward to many, many more evaluations from this gentleman. If you could please help me to welcome the evaluator for Lee King, Mr. Tom Tariki.
Thank you very much. Lee, thank you for the opportunity to evaluate you as well. And Madeleine, thank you for jumping in at the last minute and being the interviewer for Lee. So Lee, I'll share a handful of things that you did well, a couple things that I noticed that I thought you did superbly well, and a couple opportunities for things to do differently or to work on. So among the good, I noticed first of all, off the bat, I'll cite that you used the word ameliorate. Very nicely done. I noticed also that for each question that Madeleine had, you answered really promptly. Your answers were, there was no delay at all. It was right out of the gate. You had a ready answer. Uh, the other thing that I noticed that I thought was really good is that for almost all of her questions, you had very thorough answers. And by that, I mean, you had a list of things that you provided. It wasn't a singular answer. For example, when she asked about your greatest strength, you you mentioned that you looked for win-win, but then you backed that up with kind of examples of that. And I thought I liked that quite a bit. Um, the other thing, when asked about conflict resolution, you listed a handful examples of that as well. When asked what you did, you listed multiple experience that you'd had. It was also a very topical list, I noticed, where you mentioned working with patients on respirator, working with COVID patients. And one of the things that struck me about that, having a topical list, is that list kind of piqued my interest. If I were the interviewer, I would want to follow up and ask you more and learn more about those. And so having answers that open the door to other things, I thought was particularly strong. A couple things that I heard that, at least to me, I thought were really excellent. When in your answer to the question about conflict resolution, because you had brought that up previously and Madeleine followed up with it, your answer included an outcome. You didn't just mention, this is what I did, these are the activities that I did, which is what the question called for. But your answer actually went beyond that and talked about the outcome. And what I've read about interviewing, especially for jobs, is that's something that they want to hear about. So another one I noticed was when asked a question about why you'd like to work there, you pivoted the question to also give more information about your experience. And I thought that was very strong as well. I think a thing that you could work on, if you have um, other Zoom interviews or online interviews, is actually logistics and lighting. It looks like the room is backlit a little bit, and so your face is a little bit shaded, and we get a little bit of a blue hue from your monitor on your face. And so that's one I think just changing the lighting would be beneficial, would improve it. So thanks very much. I'll wrap up there.
Thank you very much, Tom. We appreciate that, and I'm sure that Lee does as well. At this point, we're going to move into our duty holder reports. We've got 3 tonight. We are going to start with our posture monitor, Mr. Mark Schroeder. Mark, what did you see tonight?
Thank you, Rob. I normally do these from the floor, but because of the mic, I'm going to do it from up here. Probably be a little bit better. Let me start off by giving just a couple of very quick safety tips, things that I would not have known. Carbon monoxide monitors. Did you know that those things actually do wear out? I'll tell you when they wear out. They wear out about 2 days after you have broken your arm at about 11 o'clock at night, and it starts going off at random, and you're not sure whether you have to leave the house. But I had actually either just had surgery or was still waiting for surgery on a broken arm when it went off, and had no choice but to call 911, have the fire department come and check it out. They were very nice about it, but they do wear out.
Or at 3 a.m. after you move into a new house and you learn about a detector that you didn't know about, and call the fire department to come up to find the detector.
Yeah, that too. So after about 5 to 7 years, plan on replacing them. They don't last forever. The next real quick one, is for power outages. They make these little things called headlamps that go around your head and just clip there. And they're really, really nice when the power goes out because you can snap a couple of batteries in those real quick and see around the house and not kill yourself. My wife uses them for ballooning because when the balloon comes down, many times it's right at sunset and it gets dark and they have got to find all of the stuff in the field that they've landed in order to get stuff and pick it all back up and put it on the trucks. But having one of those for an emergency has saved me, I cannot tell you how many times when we've had power outages, because you can never find a flashlight that works, but if I just put some batteries in those, they're good to go and I can walk them wherever I need to. All right, so let's go through the duty holders reports. Lee, the only thing about your posture tonight was probably too static, the usual problem of being on Zoom and just, we get to see a little bitty piece of you and we don't get to see hands, we don't get to see much in the way of gestures. Except for facial expressions. Those were good, too static otherwise. I'm afraid that's as usual, just because of Zoom. For Madeleine, the one thing that I noticed, and I'm going to have to do it up here, and it's not going to be quite the same on Zoom, but I noticed that you had your hand under your chin a lot while you were resting your chin on your hand, and so that was maybe a touch distracting. Admittedly, you're not the speaker tonight, but still noticed it. On the other hand, I thought has nothing to do with posture. Your questions tonight to Lee, for the amount of time you had to prep, they were excellent. It's interesting you can do an interview without even knowing what the job is for. Dagan, a couple of notes that I had for you. First of all, notes, you have notes, you looked at them occasionally and glanced back. Not really very often, you really looked at them fairly quickly, but it was noticeable that you did glance at your notes. And the only other thing that I noticed was that you were doing a lot of up and back motion while you were speaking, just a lot of motion that appeared to be, well, no particular point to it. Adelita, the one thing that I caught you on, and you caught me, and I dinged you for it, was having your hands in front. So I caught you for that, and then you showed you what you were doing, and you immediately corrected that. Rob, I thought you had very purposeful hands tonight. Every motion that I saw when you were up here seemed to have a very purposeful intent. The one thing that I noticed is you have a kickback motion. The kickback motion would best be described as just taking that little kickback. Every once in a while you'll be saying, you just take that little kickback and it doesn't seem to have any particular purpose to it. You haven't finished your point. If you had finished your point, I'd let you get away with it. Finally, Tom, very nice gestures. You have the perfect gesture, which we think of as the okay gesture, but it's really the way you used it. It was the perfect gesture. You have your hands high throughout the entire thing, and you have the framing just right on your Zoom to where we can see your hands, which we can't for a lot of other people. I think you are in competition for most hand gestures when you are on Zoom with Rob. Rob is your competition, and you did very well against him tonight. That concludes my report. Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you very much, Mark. Our next duty holder is our counter. Our counter for the evening is Mr. John Vessels. John, will you tell us what you heard tonight as far as crutch words?
Well, you know, I heard a lot of ums and ahs and everything else. Okay, here we go. Madeleine, about 3 uhs, about 3 ums. Adelita, I got 2 ums out of you. Tom, you had 3 ums and 3 uhs. And Dagan, you know, is an issue for you. And I got 1, 2, 3, about 4 ums out of you during your tabletop or Toastmaster role. That'll be it. Back to you, Rob.
Thank you very much, John. Our last duty holder is our grammarian for the evening, and that is Madeleine Hitchcliff. Madeleine, will you let us know what you heard as far as grammar tonight?
Thanks so much. So everyone used ameliorate in table topics, and ameliorate Lee used during his interview as well. I notated some exceptional word use that included Mark Sims. I like the term hall monitor types. Then Mark Schroeder. I love the Dexter kill room. That really painted an image. The word ubiquitous, which is almost as good as ameliorate, still made it in here. And then kindling is a good terminology. Dagan, I like the term preventative tactics. And then Tom, I like using the term right out of the gate is just, it paints a good picture. So that's what I noted tonight as grammarian. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madeleine. We appreciate that. At this point, we will move to my general evaluation, which goes over the entire meeting, and I'll give feedback regarding everything. First, I want to talk about, prior to the meeting starting, is getting everything in order, making sure that all the roles are filled. Our Toastmaster for the evening, Dagan Newland, did a good job with that, scrambling around, making some adjustments. We had one speaker that wasn't able to give a prepared speech, but another one stepped up, and there was coordination there beyond the Toastmaster even, with getting an interviewer to actually interview. So we did a good job with preparing for that. We also did a fantastic job, and I want to send kudos out to Mark Schroeder for being sure that he knew how everything was going to work, setting everything up as far as our hybrid meeting is concerned. He went to great lengths, and I'm not sure that we all appreciate that work and that research and the passion that he has for that, for our club. So thank you very much, Mark, regarding that. And we did end up having, from what I can tell, and we'll try to get some feedback here from our Zoom members as well, as far as how well they heard everything from various points on the stage. So we'll find that out. But from everything that we had indicated at the beginning of the meeting, it seemed like things were working very well once we got it all set up. Our duty holders did a fantastic job with explaining their duties, describing their duties at the beginning of the meeting. The meeting theme was great because, one, we're into winter. There's some things that can happen during winter that don't normally happen during the rest of the year, but safety is something that we all can think about, that we all can keep at least in the back of our minds, and that perhaps we can prepare for a little bit better as we move forward going on throughout the year, especially during the winter. So Dagan, very well chosen, I thought. And you had some great tidbits throughout regarding personal safety, as well as your car and some of the other things as far as your home was concerned. Mark Schroeder added in a couple of things at the end of the meeting as well, which was great. Table topics, I thought, Mark Sims, you did a fantastic job taking the theme and incorporating the questions around that theme. The questions were not difficult. They allowed us to think about some of the things that they represented, and we were able, as far as the table topics contestants were able to, they were able to answer those pretty well. Even Adelita, when she came up here, she answered it. She probably didn't even know she answered it until you pointed that out, because it is. Sometimes when you don't think about it, well, it means it's not necessarily at the top of your mind all the time. It doesn't mean that you forego that stuff, but it may be in your head, but it's not there all the time. And Mark, you noted you're on the other end of the spectrum where you're thinking about it very often, all the time. And it's something that we can all gauge and learn from, and maybe perhaps find our good place in the middle. So good questions. I thought our topic contestants did a fantastic job. We had some great answers to all of the questions, and as our grammarian pointed out, word of the day was used throughout, so we did a fantastic job. I do want to point out that our timer did a fantastic job stepping up, especially for the online people, to show them the cards. You know, despite them being online, they were able to see them, and you did a fantastic job of holding them there. They were able to see the words as well as the colors, so good job, Justin, with that. Our duty holder reports, very detailed, good job with those. Our evaluation for the evening, our first time evaluator, Tom. Tom, I thought you did a good job. First, you started out, you said that you were going to evaluate, give some good points, some suggestions on improvements, and you went through and you gave details regarding those points that you thought that we did very well. And that's what you want to do. You want to give those examples. I thought that you perhaps could have added, I know your time started to run out a little bit there, and that's something that you can work on as far as that was concerned, but you could have added perhaps another point that perhaps Lee could have improved upon. to add some a little bit more substance to your constructive feedback. However, I do want to say, you saw that the time was running out, something that I probably would have just rambled on. So I thought you did a great job as far as saying, all right, my time's up, let me wrap up. So kudos to you for that. I'm not sure if our online people, and you can give me feedback now if you'd like, whether you heard the clicking from our counter, whether you heard the posture bell from our posture monitor. I was here and I didn't hear our posture monitor ring the bell, but it sounds like he did it. I use that term, I guess, in, I don't know, a different way than literal, but apparently he hit it when Adelita was speaking and I didn't even hear it and I'm sitting right there. So if you heard the clicks and the bell ringing online, if you want to let us know now, that would be great. Did you hear that stuff?
We heard it a few times.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. That's good. Perhaps we can kind of work on that a little bit. Something that I thought also that we can learn from and work on is something that we kind of did at the last minute, which was Dagan logging on to get votes from the online people, as well as have the votes here, so we could have our vote counter have a full membership voting. And also, perhaps we can work maybe a little bit more on figuring out a way to have a timer online, as well as have somebody here showing cards as well. Not sure whether that will be relevant, but some things that we have to maybe think about for our online hybrid setting to maybe improve just a little bit in regard to that. Overall, I thought we did a fantastic job with the meeting tonight, and I need to do one more thing before I finish up, and that is to call for one more vote. And guests, you are welcome to vote as well. This is for best of the big three, and that means our Toastmaster, Mr. Dagan Newland, or our topic master, Mr. Mark Sims, or our general evaluator for the evening, Rob Giles, yours truly. So go ahead and vote. There's no actual tab on the ballot that says best of the big three. So you can just write it on there, best of the big three, and put either Dagan, Mark, or Rob, and then throw that into the cup. And our vote counter will come around and grab those. For those online, if you could send a message to Dagan and he'll collect those votes. And he will pass those along to Adelita to tally those as well. While you are doing that, I will pass the baton over to our club president, Mr. Lee King. Lee, the business portion of the meeting is yours.
All right, great. Yes, we do have a few guests, no one online, a few people in the room. So if you are a guest, if you could please introduce yourself and tell us how you found us and what you thought about our meeting, please.
Okay. My name is Jessica. I found you guys on Google because, I don't know, you can probably tell I am very nervous in front of public speaking or speaking to people. So I really need to work on that because it is strongly interfering with my job right now. For example, I had a committee meeting yesterday. I had to present to CEO, the president of the company, director of marketing, and I had to present 6 accounts. So trying to maintain my breath the whole entire time while speaking for 6 accounts was actually difficult, to say the least. So.
And what did you think about our meeting?
I think this is awesome. I do say a lot. I try to catch myself doing that personally too, because I know it's not the most conducive. So I think this would definitely help ameliorate that in my speaking. But I think it's great. I think it's very awesome for self-improvement, and I think it's what I need.
Thank you.
Hey guys, my name's Joey. So I heard about you guys through my wife, Jessica, because she wanted to come and check it out. So a little about me, I guess. I like this a lot too because I'm currently, we just moved here from South Florida about a month and a half ago. So I've been looking for jobs as well and doing the higher view interviews and in-person Zoom meeting interviews too. And this is a great opportunity to just learn. And it's inspiring to watch all you guys get up here with fear, no fear, and speak and do an excellent job. And about the meeting, yeah, I think it's just great, and I feel like it's a great opportunity to learn and grow and just get more comfortable speaking to everyone. So,
Just a few announcements. Please stay tuned for more details on the Toastmasters Leadership Institute. They're going on throughout this month and early next month. And we will be sending out more details on that as we get them. Most of the sessions will be on Zoom. And for those of you that are guests, just wanted to let you all know that this is officer training. And you don't have to be a member or an officer for that matter, to attend. Anybody can attend and learn more about Toastmasters and the officer positions available within Toastmasters. Also, we do have a club contest coming up the first part of next month. We will be getting together as officers and determining the next best step forward. What we do know is that the contest will be online for area, division, district, and I'm not sure what international is doing, but we do know that as far as District 50, there was a vote that had to be in last August, in which we had to tell international if we would be doing our contests either through Zoom or in person. Virtual hybrid is not an option, so it's either all Zoom or all in person. And overwhelmingly, the district members voted to do all the contests virtually, and whatever you did in the fall, you had to do in the spring. At this point, we'll still figure out what we will plan to do, how we'll plan to do the club contest. If we're going to have contestants compete on Zoom, if we're going to try to do in person, some form of hybrid, we'll just figure that out as time goes along, and we will let you all know. Also, just as a reminder, we will continue to do hybrid, at least for a little bit longer, until hopefully this Omicron variant goes down. But we will probably be looking at converting more back to all in person as the Omicron variant dies down, which hopefully does. With, of course, if things get worse, we would go back on Zoom. So just keep that in mind. We don't really have a deadline as far as when we're going to go completely in person and do away with Zoom. But just keep in the back of your mind that probably hybrid is not going to be an option from here on out. Open deadline, I should say. And with that, I think we are ready for our vote counter report.
Okay, so we don't have vote for the best evaluator and the best speaker. So for best table topics is Mark Schroeder. And best of big three, Mark Sims. Thank you.
All right, with that, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all. Give me just a moment to stop the recording.